If you live out in the country, you already know the sound a gravel driveway makes when a car you don't recognize pulls in at 11 at night. That sound is what started the worst night of my life, and I was the one wearing the badge. I'd been sheriff of our county for almost 9 years. Small county, maybe 4,000 people, mostly farmland and a couple of towns you could drive through in under a minute. I knew almost everybody. I knew their trucks, their dogs, their bad habits. That night I was off duty, sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee going cold beside me, when I heard tires crunching up my own driveway. I wasn't expecting anybody. My wife was already asleep inside. I remember standing up slow, the way you do when something feels off but you can't say why yet. The headlights cut off before the car even fully stopped. That's the first thing that should have told me something was wrong. Nobody who's got good intentions kills their lights early like that. A man stepped out. Mid-30s maybe, plain clothes, nothing that stood out. He said his name was Dale and that he needed help, that his brother had gotten hurt bad out on County Road 9, and there was no cell signal out there, and could I call it in? Now County Road 9 is a real road. That's what got me. He didn't say some made-up street. He said something true, something I could check in my head and confirm, and that's exactly why I believed him faster than I should have. I told him to hold on. I'd radio it in myself, and I went to grab my duty belt from just inside the door. That's a decision I've replayed 1,000 times since. Because the second my back was turned, I heard my own front door click shut behind me, and I heard the deadbolt turn. From the inside, I stood there on my own porch, locked out of my own house, with my wife asleep upstairs and a stranger who had somehow just gotten past me into my home. I didn't understand it yet. I thought maybe the wind, maybe I'd bumped it myself. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked harder, still nothing. And that's when I heard my wife's voice from inside, muffled, saying my name like a question, like she wasn't sure why the door was locked either. I want you to understand something about being a sheriff in a place like that. You don't carry your gun to sit on your own porch drinking coffee. Mine was inside, in the hall closet, exactly where it does no good at all when you're standing outside your own front door. I went around back. The kitchen door was locked too, which it never is, not out where we live. I looked through the window and saw the man, Dale, standing calm in my kitchen, not rushing, not panicking, just standing there like he had all the time in the world. My wife was at the table. She wasn't hurt. She looked confused more than scared, the way you look when a wrong number call goes on a beat too long. He wasn't holding anything. That was almost worse. A man with a weapon, you understand exactly what kind of danger you're in. A man with empty hands, standing calm in your house at midnight, you have no idea what he's capable of, and your mind fills in every terrible possibility on its own. I broke the window with my elbow. Fastest decision I've made in my life. Glass everywhere, cut my arm open pretty good, didn't feel a thing until hours later. I got the door unlocked from inside, and I was in my own kitchen in maybe 4 seconds, and Dale hadn't moved an inch. He looked at me like he'd been expecting exactly that. He said, "I just wanted to talk to someone for a minute." Calm as anything, like locking 2 people out of their own home, was a completely normal way to start a conversation. I had him on the ground before he finished the sentence. Cuffed him with my own hands, no radio, no backup, just adrenaline doing the job training usually does. My wife told me later she never even heard him come in. He didn't force the lock. He didn't break anything to get inside. The back door had simply been unlocked the whole time, something we never do out there, something we'd never once forgotten in 11 years of living in that house. Until that night. Here's the part that still keeps me up sometimes. We searched him. No weapon. No drugs, no record that explained any of it. When we finally got him processed and I sat across from him in an interview room I know as well as my own kitchen, I asked him straight out why. Why our house? Why that night? He looked at me for a long time before he answered. He said he'd been driving around for 2 hours before he found us. Said he picked houses that looked settled. Said mine had a porch light on and curtains that matched and a mailbox that wasn't leaning, and that told him somebody inside had something worth interrupting. That's it. That's the whole reason. Not me being sheriff. Not anything personal. Just a man driving in the dark, looking for a life that looked comfortable enough to be worth breaking into for one night. He did 18 months. Trespassing, unlawful entry. I still don't fully understand what he wanted once he was inside. He never touched anything. Never took a thing. Just wanted to be in a house that wasn't his with people who didn't invite him. We changed our locks that week. Put a camera on the porch. My wife checks the back door herself now, every single night, even though I tell her I've already done it. But here's what nobody tells you about a night like that. It's not the man in the kitchen that stays with you. It's standing on your own porch, 10 feet from your own front door, completely locked out of the one place in the world you thought was yours. That feeling doesn't go away with a badge, with a gun, with 9 years of experience. It just teaches you that safe is a word you use before something happens, not after. And some nights, when I hear tires on gravel that late, I still feel my stomach drop the exact same way. If you live in a small town, you probably think you know everyone. You think you'd notice if something was wrong. I used to think that too. I was a sheriff for 11 years in a county so small, we didn't even have a stoplight. And I'm telling you this because what happened to me on one call changed the way I look at every quiet road, every parked car, every routine stop for the rest of my life. It was a Wednesday night in October. I was the only deputy on shift that night because our other guy had the flu, and our town was small enough that one person covering the whole county wasn't unusual. Around 11:30, dispatch radioed me about a vehicle parked on the shoulder, out past the old grain silos. No plates reported, no complaint really, just a passerby who thought it looked odd sitting there with its lights off. I almost didn't go. It was the kind of call you brush off 9 times out of 10. A broken-down car, somebody who ran out of gas, nothing more. But something about that stretch of road bothered me. It was isolated. No houses for miles, just fields and the wind cutting through dead cornstalks. When I got there, the car was a dark sedan, engine off, no interior lights. I ran the plate before I even got out, and dispatch came back with nothing. No record. That alone was strange. Every car has a record. I approached slow, hand near my flashlight, calling out like we're trained to. No answer. Windows were up. I tapped the glass, and that's when I saw someone in the driver's seat slumped forward like they'd fallen asleep. I knocked harder. Nothing. My gut told me to call for backup, but backup was 40 minutes out that night, so I made the decision to check on the person myself. I opened the door and the smell hit me first. Not death, not anything like that. It was bleach. Strong, like someone had just cleaned something. The man in the seat stirred when the door opened, and when he looked up at me, he smiled. Not startled, not confused, just smiled. I asked if he was okay, if he needed help. He said he was fine, that he just pulled over to rest. His voice was calm, almost friendly, but his eyes didn't match his voice. I asked for his ID. He reached toward the glove box, slow, too slow, like he wanted me to watch every movement. When he opened it, I saw rope. Not a lot, just enough. Coiled up like it had a purpose. He caught me looking and just said, "For hauling stuff." Simple as that, no hesitation. Every instinct in me said to step back, and I did, but I kept my tone even. You learn in this job that fear on your face can be the thing that gets you killed. I told him I needed him to step out of the vehicle. He didn't argue. He just unbuckled, slow again, and got out, and stood there with his hands loose at his sides, still smiling like we were old friends catching up. That's when I noticed the back seat. Empty, but wrong somehow. The seats were folded down flat, and there was a tarp underneath, blue, the kind you get at any hardware store, folded neat like it hadn't been used yet, or like it had been used and cleaned. I asked him where he was headed. He said, "Nowhere important." Then he asked me a question that still sits in my chest to this day. He asked if I had a family waiting for me at home. I told him that wasn't his concern. He nodded slowly, still smiling, and said, "That's good, that's real good." I don't know how to explain what happened in my body in that moment except to say every hair stood up at once. Not because he threatened me. He never raised his voice, never moved wrong. It was the calm, the stillness, like he had already decided something, and was simply waiting to see how the night would unfold. I told him to put his hands on the hood. He complied without a single word of protest, which somehow scared me more than if he'd run. I patted him down, found nothing, no weapon, nothing illegal on him at all. Just a man, standing on the side of an empty road at midnight with a tarp and a coil of rope in his car. I ran his name through dispatch while keeping him in view. It came back clean. No warrants, no record, nothing. Just an ordinary man with an ordinary name. But nothing about that 10 minutes felt ordinary. Backup finally arrived, lights cutting through the dark, and only then did something in him shift, just slightly. His jaw tightened. His eyes moved to the deputy's car, then back to me, like he was recalculating something. Like our conversation had been leading somewhere, and now it couldn't. We let him go that night. There was no crime to charge him with. A rope and a tarp aren't illegal. Being calm isn't illegal. I watched his taillights disappear down the road, and I remember standing there in the cold, feeling like I'd just stepped away from the edge of something I couldn't name. 2 weeks later, a man went missing 40 miles east of that road. His car was found abandoned with the interior wiped down with bleach. They never found him. They never found him either, not under that name. When I pulled the plate again, it came back to a car that had been reported destroyed at a scrapyard 8 months earlier. I still think about that smile sometimes. Late at night when I'm driving some empty stretch of highway and I see a car pulled over with its lights off, I slow down. I always slow down. If a sheriff's deputy ever knocks on your door at 11 at night and asks to come inside just for a minute, I need you to remember what I'm about to tell you, because I did let him in, and it was the worst decision I've ever made in my life. I lived alone in a small house outside a town in rural Texas, about 20 minutes from the nearest gas station. I liked it that way. Quiet, private, no neighbors close enough to hear anything. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I just finished watching the news, and the weather guy said a cold front was coming in. I was getting ready for bed when I heard tires crunching on my gravel driveway, then headlights sweeping across my living room curtains. I looked out the window and saw a sheriff's cruiser. The lights on top weren't spinning, just parked there, engine idling. A man got out wearing a full uniform, badge catching the porch light, hat pulled low. He walked up slow, like he wasn't in a hurry, and knocked 3 times. I opened the door already halfway because why wouldn't I? It was a sheriff. "Evening, sir," he said. "Sorry to bother you this late. We've had a report of a break-in 2 houses down. Mind if I ask you a few questions inside? Won't take long." His voice was calm, almost bored, the way you'd expect from someone who'd said this same line 100 times. I stepped back and let him in. I want you to sit with that for a second. I let a stranger into my house at 11 at night because he was wearing a costume that made me trust him. He stepped inside and looked around the living room slower than I expected. Not nervous, curious, like he was taking inventory. "You live here alone?" he asked, still facing away from me, looking at a photo on my shelf. "My wife is asleep upstairs," I lied. I don't know why I said it. Something in my gut told me to say it before he even finished the question. He turned around then, and for the first time I really looked at his face. And something was wrong with it. Not wrong like scarred or strange. Wrong like it didn't match. His uniform was crisp, ironed, the badge polished, but his boots were caked in dry mud, cracked and flaking onto my carpet, like he'd been walking through a field for hours, not patrolling a paved road in a cruiser. "Can I get your name for the report?" he asked, and he took a small notepad out of his pocket. A cheap spiral one, the kind you'd buy at a dollar store, not the kind departments issue. I told him a fake name. Again, I don't know why. Some part of my brain was already screaming, even though I couldn't explain what was wrong yet. He wrote it down, nodded, and asked if he could use my bathroom. I said sure, because what else do you say to a sheriff standing in your living room? He walked down the hallway, and the second he was out of sight, I looked out my front window at his cruiser still idling in the driveway. The light bar on top had a crack running through the plastic housing, and one of the side mirrors was duct-taped on. I've lived in this county my whole life. I know what our sheriff's department vehicles look like. They're new. They're maintained. That cruiser looked like it had been pulled out of an impound lot. I stood in my living room, heart slamming against my ribs, and I made a decision that I think saved my life. I picked up my phone, walked as quietly as I could to my back door, and let myself out into the yard. I didn't run yet. I didn't want him to hear gravel or grass moving too fast. I walked along the side of the house, phone against my ear, calling in 911 in a whisper. The dispatcher picked up and I told her everything. A man in a sheriff's uniform, driving a cruiser that didn't match our department's fleet, currently locked in my bathroom. She went quiet for a second longer than I liked. "Sir, I need you to get somewhere safe right now. We don't have any units dispatched to a break-in call on your road tonight. Nobody was sent to your address." That's when I heard my bathroom door unlock, back inside my own house. I ran then, across my yard, through the wet grass, toward my neighbor's porch light nearly a quarter mile down the road. I didn't look back once, because looking back costs you seconds, and seconds were the only thing keeping distance between me and whatever was walking around inside my house wearing a badge. I banged on my neighbor's door until an old man in a bathrobe let me in, and we watched from his window as, a few minutes later, his headlights flicked on and the cruiser rolled backward down my driveway, no lights, no sirens, and disappeared down the road into the dark. Real deputies showed up 20 minutes later. 2 of them walked through my house with flashlights and found the bathroom window unlatched. Screen popped out and left leaning against the side of my house in the grass. He hadn't been using my bathroom at all. He'd been checking his exit. They found something else too. In my bedroom, on my bed, folded neatly on top of my pillow, was a page torn from that same dollar store notepad. On it, in handwriting far too steady for what he'd just done, were 3 words. "Next time alone." They never caught him. The uniform, they told me later, wasn't standard county issue, but it was close enough, good enough under porch light and panic, to make me open my own front door to a stranger. I moved out of that house within the month. I still don't know who he really was, whether he'd done this before, whether next time ever came for somebody else in some other quiet house on some other dark road. But I know this: a badge is a costume, a calm voice is a costume, and the most dangerous person who ever walks up your driveway might be wearing both, smiling, asking politely to come inside. If someone in uniform ever asks to enter your home at night, verify first. Call the department directly, because the door you open in a moment of trust might be the last one you ever get to close. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a like if you made it to the end, and let us know in the comments which of the 3 stories creeped you out the most. We read every single one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.